Hello and welcome. I have put together a presentation for you today in which we will be exploring a comment here on the screen from a viewer that really sums up what a huge number of people are wondering. How do I get healthy? First of all, I want to say a thank you to this viewer who posted this comment. These are important questions and they also give a great insight into how we can get healthy, not just by improving our diet, but also by changing our ways of thinking. If you have any questions, then please send me an email on the screen now. I will endeavor to make a video or answer you personally, and you may find the answer that you've been looking for. There are so many people feeling bad. They feel terrible, they feel tired, they have aches and pains, nothing seems to work. They just can't describe exactly what is wrong with them, but they know that they should not be feeling like this. They go to see their doctor, but the doctor also cannot put them in a box and tell them the exact name of the problem. This is the initial reaction of the medical system. However, as time goes on, the medical industry develops new boxes to put people's problems into. These symptoms that I have described, always feeling fatigued, with aches and pains all over, what should this be called? Well, the name given for this is fibromyalgia. This is still a relatively new disease for 21st century medicine. Because so many people describe the same symptoms, doctors can now diagnose another disease and put all these people in another box. However, when someone tells their doctor, I just hurt so bad all over, does this diagnosis of fibromyalgia help? When a doctor diagnoses fibromyalgia, it does not help treat the patient to make them feel any better. What is accomplished by the doctor diagnosing my fibromyalgia? Does the doctor know what causes it? No. Does the doctor know how to cure it? No. You are basically exactly the same, but now you have a name that you can tell your friends and your relatives that I have got fibromyalgia. Whether you call it feeling uncomfortable in your skin, or fibromyalgia, or rheumatoid arthritis, or non-specific arthritis, or you just feel that you are fat and sick and feel horrible like a vast amount of the Western population, it doesn't make any difference. While modern medicine knows other, while modern medicine knows nothing other than a pharmacological remedy or surgery, however, I know the answer. I can help you treat yourself, and it is through diet and lifestyle. Diet is the most important factor that determines your overall health. This is the most important thing you will ever hear in your life. Therefore, I'll say it again. As food is the way that we interact with our environment the most, diet is the most powerful medicine to treat the root cause of chronic diseases. In the Western world, so the United States, Europe, and those places around the world adapting the Western diet and lifestyle, people suffer from chronic diseases. The reason why they are classed as chronic, such as type 2 diabetes, is because they are incurable with modern conventional medicine and progressively get worse. Modern medicine is called palliative. It's called palliative care because it treats the aches and pains caused by chronic disease. Modern medicine is not curative. Pharmacological and surgery do not cure the cause of disease. Modern medicine is very good at treating acute single injuries such as terrible cuts to the skin or broken bones. The standard of care is exceedingly bad at treating repeated injuries, which is the definition of chronic disease. This is very important to understand. You need to see the difference between the obvious and sudden damage caused by a car accident, for example, versus the damage done over decades by the standard Western or standard American diet. When people eat the standard Western diet, they are damaging their body repeatedly over years and then decades. Type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and mitochondrial damage is not caused by one single meal, therefore, one single injury. It is actually caused by the accumulation of thousands of meals. I have mentioned food as a medicine, but other lifestyle factors are important, such as regular exercise. However, the, the central most important foundation to a healthy body is the food you eat several times a day, every day. SAD. This is the acronym for the Standard American Diet. Western culture is a meat based culture, and it is defined by its horrific health statistics. The standard Western diet is a fat and animal protein rich diet. The consequence of repeatedly shoveling these rich Western foods into your mouth with your knife and fork causes repeated injury to the body over years. This is called food poisoning, and the tools enabling this damage to your body is your very own cutlery. The symptoms of this food poisoning manifests as the diseases of Western civilized world. Excess dietary fat, along with animal protein, is culminating in the symptoms such as obesity, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and specifically in this video, fibromyalgia. Also, it's also referred to as chronic fatigue, as chronic fatigue. Human beings do poorly when they eat a high fat and animal protein rich diet. This leads us on to what we should be eating if we care about our health. It's not all doom and gloom, as humans do well when they eat starch and fruit. This could be white rice for your starch and bananas as your fruit. Other examples of starch are potatoes, sweet potatoes, and pasta. For fruit, there is a wide range available. My favorites are the sweetest fruits like watermelons, and a really good ripe apple. Very nice. This is the traditional diet of human beings. Starch has supported the worldwide pillars of civilizations throughout recorded human history. Potatoes in South America, white rice in Asia, corn in Africa, and oats and wheat in Europe and the Middle East. This area of the world is called the breadbasket of the world for a good reason. The staple food that fueled the people of Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire, was bread. At Rome's height 2,000 years ago, this staple food supported a population of 1 million people. It took almost another 1,800 years for a city to exceed a population of 1 million people. This was Beijing, China. These people in Asia, living many thousands of miles away from Rome, ate another type of starch, white rice. White rice has actually been eaten by more people throughout human history than any other food on the planet. White rice has been eaten by billions of people for thousands of years, and therefore, rice is the most well tested food ever in the history of the world. So you know it's safe. Safe and effective, as they say. Humans can get chemical energy from sugar or fat, and under extreme conditions, protein. When people choose fat as their energy source, they damage their bodies. Another problem is that all this fat usually comes along with a large dose of animal protein, and as a result, we are seeing all these chronic diseases in the Western world. When people choose to get their energy from sugar in the form of starch and sugar, they can't fulfill their potential. This is the choice we face every time we go to the supermarket or grocery store. We can choose whatever we want to eat. This is what the globalized capitalist system has given the Western population. We all know where unhealthy people choose to go. They go to the meat and dairy aisles, they head for the frozen aisle for burgers and sausages, and they head for the bottles of oil covered in slogans such as healthy fats and heart healthy. Where do healthy people go? Healthy people choose to go down the produce aisles for all the fruit options, then head for the rice and pasta sections, and avoid the oil on their way out of the store. They avoid the oil, okay? Avoid the oil. When I say the word starch, you are probably a bit confused about what I'm talking about. Complex carbohydrates are the food industry's way of confusing people. If I was to ask you what a complex carbohydrate was, would you actually be able to point at one of these types of food? Would you be able to tell me what this is? What about starch? Now that is easy, and even I can do that. We could both point to rice, potatoes, pasta, and corn, for example. Very, very easy, even for a little child. Starch is actually the term that people would have used once upon a time until industry, marketing, and health policies got their hands on manipulating people's decision making. The image on the left of the screen shows starch with its long chains of glucose, which inside the plant are then wrapped in fiber. There is actually starch in all the tissues of plants, but the plant tissues with the highest quantities are specifically the underground and above ground storage organs for starch. For example, tubers are below ground storage organs where the plant converts the energy of the sun into glucose chemical energy. Above ground storage organs are seeds and grains like white rice. These storage organs store genetic material so that the plant can become a new plant in the spring, but they also need the chemical energy in order to grow into a new plant. Human beings are unique in their ability to tap into this stored chemical energy because of our large number of amylase genes. These genes code for the enzyme called amylase, and this breaks down starch and allows us to absorb glucose. This process of digestion starts in the mouth as we have these amylase enzymes in our saliva. Fruit is full of sucrose and fructose. These are what are often referred to as simple sugars, but I would never use this term. On the right of the screen is the diagram of a sucrose sugar molecule. Fructose is just the single ring sugar shown on the right in pink. Dates have a very high content of sucrose sugar. Agave nectar is made primarily of fructose, and that's what gives it the sweetness. No, no oil, no oil. There are no healthy animal or plant oils. There's no such thing as healthy fats. The leading cause of death of women and men in the civilized Western world is heart disease. The tragedy is this disease need not exist. Heart disease is merely a consequence of choosing the wrong foods that are high in fat and animal protein. The cure for the leading cause of death lies not in the foods that we choose to eat, but in those foods that we choose not to eat. Eliminating oils from the diet plays part in stopping the progression of heart disease. The food industry has brainwashed and conditioned people into believing that it is in their best interests to die from heart disease and to continue to suffer from chronic disease in return for eating the rich Western foods of kings and queens. The Western world is suffering from diseases of overnutrition from fat and animal protein. The diseases of deficiency, so diseases of deficiency, such as scurvy, were cured hundreds of years ago. In the case of scurvy, it was found through the addition of fruit, it cured the lack of vitamin C. This is where the nickname for British sailors, the nickname for British sailors comes from. They were called limeys because these fruits, so limes, cured the deficiency of vitamin C that their meat ration gave them. When I say sugar, I'm talking about carbohydrates. So that you never get confused again, always remember that all sugar is carbohydrate and all carbohydrate is sugar. This doesn't matter whether it's white rice or white table sugar. The great thing about sugar is that it is a clean burning fuel. The problem with fat is it is a harmful fuel source that in its excess consumption in the Western diet causes the body to malfunction. The chemical structure on the left of the screen is a glucose molecule. Notice that it has a ring structure. On the right, you can see examples of the different types of fat. They are classified by the number of single or double. They are classified by the number of single or double carbon bonds. This is just a little bit of chemistry that you must know for your own health. For example, the fat with no double bonds is called saturated fat and is found in high amounts in animal food products. It is called saturated fat because the chain of carbon atoms is joined to two hydrogen atoms and therefore it is saturated with hydrogen atoms. The fat with two or more double bonds is called a polyunsaturated fat and is found in high amounts in cold water fish and vegetable oils. All these fats are bad. They all increase the risk of developing chronic disease. The more of these fats and oil you add to your diet, the more likely your health is going to suffer compared to eating a low-fat vegan diet of starches and fruit. The reason that people are confused about their healthy food choices is because of the behavior of the food industry. For example, a bottle of oil may say healthy on it or even say heart healthy. What this food industry does is it takes a very unhealthy fat, like saturated fat, and compares it to their oil with lower levels of saturated fat. The outcome is that less people will develop heart disease when eating less saturated fat. This is an evil, manipulative trick that the food industry uses to get people to continue to buy their oil products, their cooking oil products. What most people don't know is that the science that these cooking oil companies use to promote their products to show that all oil actually shows. I'll start again. What most people don't realize is that the science that these cooking oil companies use to promote their products show that all oils progress chronic disease. What the cooking oil companies do is compare the results of a trial between two unhealthy diets. They compare a very high fat diet with a high fat diet. And there are worse outcomes with the very high fat group. If all these oils were compared to a low fat vegan diet, the truth would be laid bare for all to see. But this is never going to happen because it would prove that oils, no matter what kind, progress heart disease and chronic disease. How do we know this? The only diet clinically proven to arrest and reverse the leading cause of death is a low-fat, plant-based diet. No oil diet has cured heart disease. No oil diet has cured heart disease. All diets have been all oil diets have been proved to progress heart disease by the very same papers that oil companies, and when I keep saying oil companies in this context, I'm saying cooking oil companies, used to justify the oily Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is the marketing used to get people to eat an unhealthy diet and does not exist anywhere in the world other than the world that is created by marketing in people's minds. How does this all relate to fibromyalgia, discomfort, and chronic fatigue? Now we are getting into some really interesting and important information you must know to control your own destiny. Here is an overview of cellular respiration that occurs inside most human cells. This is a simplified version, but it gives you enough detail to understand the basics to get yourself healthy. This diagram shows oxygen and non-oxygen respiration in human cells. This is where energy comes from in your body. This is what allows you to get out of bed in the morning and empowers you throughout the day. The outcome of both of these types of respiration is ATP, along with the waste products of carbon dioxide and water. Heat is also generated, which is used to maintain our body temperature at about 37 degrees Celsius. ATP is the chemical that is used to run the cell, which I will show you in a moment. This is where energy comes from that gives you drive to live every day. When oxygen respiration is disrupted, the body will start to malfunction, and part of the symptoms of this are fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. The primary energy system of the human body is glycolysis. This is when glucose is used to produce ATP in the cytosol of the cell. This type of respiration is inefficient, producing only a small number of ATP molecules. Although this type of respiration does not require oxygen, it does not produce enough ATP to power all human cells. The mitochondria is where oxygen respiration occurs, and therefore it is vastly more efficient. This aerobic respiration in the mitochondria produces up to 18 times more ATP than anaerobic respiration in glycolysis. For example, brain cells run on sugar and require vast amounts of ATP to function. Anything that reduces ATP production increases the chance of programmed cell death of a neuron. On the other hand, red blood cells only respire via glycolysis, as they do not contain mitochondria. However, these cells are designed to be bags of hemoglobin to carry oxygen around the body to the cells respiring via their mitochondria. When I say eat a high carbohydrate diet of starch and fruit, I always hear the same thing. That's going to cause diabetes and metabolic disease. This is not true. I have heard the same low IQ soundbite repeated from most people I have ever met, from doctors, biochemists, and even PhD sport nutrition scientists. Your metabolism is sugar. Your body combines carbohydrate in the form of glucose with oxygen in the mitochondria to make ATP. The delusion that carbohydrate is bad is a universal theme, as most people in society have been conditioned and brainwashed into believing a lie. The body runs on sugar. Every cell in the human body runs on sugar. Every cell. Glucose is the molecule of all life on this planet. Take a moment to think about that for a second. Glucose sugar, the molecule that powers all life on this planet. Glucose is used to make ATP, and ATP is the chemical energy that powers all your cells. ATP is like the currency of a human cell. Imagine ATP as a £20 note that is used to pay for all the day-to-day transactions in society. Without it, society collapses, and so it is with your health. ATP is first made by the primary energy system called glycolysis. As we said, this is very inefficient, but it doesn't require oxygen to happen. This is called anaerobic respiration, and also it's known as fermentation. As red blood cells don't have mitochondria, they must rely exclusively on glucose sugar to make ATP. Again, just think about that for a second. This molecule, i.e., sugar, this molecule is so demonized in society, but it powers every cell in your body, and therefore it is the reason that you are alive right now, listening to me give this life-changing presentation. Your brain is running on sugar, your immune system is running on sugar. And where does that sugar originally come from? Plants. It's plants that make sugar. It comes from plants, and more specifically, starches and fruits. ATP is then made by the mitochondria, which is very efficient and produces vast amounts of ATP, mainly in the electron transport chain, which is where the protons and electrons are used when it splits hydrogen atoms. The protons that are ripped off hydrogens during glycolysis are pumped into the intermembranous space of the mitochondria. The electrons are then passed down a series of carriers, protein carriers, to oxygen. Oxygen is the ultimate electron acceptor because of its very high electronegativity or reactivity. Then hydrogens are added to these oxygens, and you get water as a harmless waste product. The energy from the higher pressure of protons on the outside of the membrane are then harvested by traveling back through an enzyme called ATP synthase, which will spin like a motor. This is a nanomotor that spins thousands of times a minute. These nanomotor machines spin faster than a jet engine. Faster than a jet engine to produce ATP from the molecule ADP. These biological machines are so incredibly complex and beautiful that they are the wonder of the universe. This is the mitochondria. This is where energy comes from for all animal life on Earth. The mitochondria is like a nuclear power plant that chops the hydrogen in half. It splits the atom. This is miraculous. This tiny little thing inside your cells, 1 micron across, about the same size as a bacteria cell. It splits the hydrogen atom into protons and electrons. Could you imagine if you gathered together all the greatest scientific minds and asked them to create a nuclear power plant that is the same size of an E. coli bacterium, only produces waste as a product, only produces water, only water as a waste product, and that you had thousands of them within just one cell? They would say, yeah, right, you're an idiot. You'd be laughed out of all the greatest universities of the world. Excuse me. The mitochondria makes tons and tons of energy. They are the reason you are alive and why multicellular life is possible on this planet. The mitochondria is the foundation of life and at the center of all life. Mitochondria are used to create a proton gradient, and there are trillions and trillions of these nuclear power plants in every single animal. Trillions. Unbelievable. Proton gradient is the holy grail. The simple first cells of life on this planet used a proton gradient to create life. The understanding of a proton gradient is fundamental to life. This is the origin of life as used by mitochondria, as used by photosynthesis, and as used by bacteria. When one side of a membrane has more protons than the other side, the difference represents a source of energy that can be harnessed to do work. Here is an equation to show you that photosynthesis, taking CO2 and water to make glucose and releasing oxygen as a waste product, is the opposite of human metabolism. Human metabolism is cellular respiration. That takes glucose and oxygen and produces CO2 and water as a waste product. This is what you should all be caring about. The energy of the sun is transferred to us by plants converting sunlight into glucose. We take this glucose and we use it to power our bodies. Humans and plants go together. Did you hear that? Humans and plants go together. Isn't that amazing? Life runs on proton gradients. In bacteria, chloroplasts in plants, and mitochondria in eukaryotes, which is what we are. When you have a cell and you want to have life, there has to be an osmotic balance between the inside of the cell and the outside of the cell. This means you have to pump out the calcium and sodium from within the cell. Now you have to pump potassium and magnesium into the cell, as these are the key counterbalancing ions. Now you have an osmotic balance. In the plasma membrane of your cells, ATP powers the sodium potassium ATP pump. This pump is the equivalent of an electrical battery. It brings in 2 potassium and it pumps out 3 sodium. This makes the inside of the cell more negative. This creates a resting membrane potential of negative 65 millivolts. This is called an electrical gradient, as the more positive sodium wants to come into the cell. You have charge separation across a membrane barrier. You have the flow of charge. The flow of ions across a cell membrane generates a potential charge that can be harnessed to do work. Most of the energy used in your brain cells, called neurons, is to maintain these pumps. This is just one of the mechanisms that require energy from ATP. But what you need to know is that this ion gradient is like a battery. Here is a simple diagram of the sodium-potassium pump in the cell membrane. This is an electrical battery, and this electrical battery produces energy that is used to maintain the function of the cell. The reason why you are alive right now, watching me, listening to the presentation, is because your cells are constantly producing ATP all the time. Every second of every day, your cells constantly require ATP to function. The main function of ATP is to provide an energy source to create an ion gradient across a cell membrane. This is an enzyme that requires energy from ATP to pump the sodiums out and the potassiums in. This is an active transport system because it must require energy, it needs energy to pump ions against their concentration gradient. We are meant to eat tons of potassium for the running of these batteries. And where do you find potassium? Bananas, rice, from plant foods. And why is magnesium also very important? Magnesium regulates calcium ion channels. This then allows calcium to enter the cell, which, if it's a muscle cell, for example, that would cause a muscle cell to contract. If that was a neuron in the brain, that would cause a neuron to fire a message so that you have memory and can function. However, the most important role magnesium plays is stabilizing the ATP molecule. This molecule that I keep mentioning, and you may have heard of before, is actually called magnesium ATP. Without the positive charge of magnesium, the negative charge created by neighboring oxygen molecules within the molecule, within ATP, would tear apart ATP. And where do you find magnesium? It is at the center of chlorophyll in plants. Yes, again, in plants, in plants, in plants, in starch and fruit. Starch and fruit, it's good. As long as you are eating the right foods, the machinery of your body will work as well as it's going to ever work. The more unhealthy you are, the sooner your body will start to malfunction and fall apart. And therefore, you feel the symptoms of this. This is where a high sugar diet is important. Starch and fruits that are naturally high in sugar, while at the same time they are also low in fat, low in animal protein, low in protein, and therefore lacking in any animal protein whatsoever. This has a protective effect. A low fat, low protein diet has a protective effect. It shields you from the damage of eating excess dietary fat and therefore the damage caused by animal protein. The game of life is to work out the rules of the game before it is too late. We cannot live forever, but we can live the time that we are given with the best quality of life that we can give ourselves. I am giving you a gift. With the information I provide, you can control your own destiny. This is what everyone is always looking for. This is a image of a mitochondria. You've already seen one before, but here's another one. The overall health of a human being is determined by the health of mitochondria in every organ throughout your body. The longer someone eats mitochondrial inhibitors, the more damaged the mitochondria will become. The less oxygen and glucose a cell receives, the less ATP a cell will be able to produce. The way to increase oxygen and glucose delivery to cells is to increase the efficiency of blood flow around the body. The most important factor for this is to keep total fat intake low. The more excess dietary fat you eat, the less efficient blood flow becomes, and therefore energy production in cells decreases systematically throughout the entire body. The main cause of type 2 diabetes is saturated fat. Therefore, saturated fat acts as one of the main mitochondrial inhibitors, inhibiting and decreasing ATP production. Saturated fat inhibits the mitochondrial membrane, leading the mitochondria to send an overnutrition signal to the cell telling it to stop absorbing any more glucose. This leads to the symptoms of high blood glucose as excess fat fat blocks the normal ability of skeletal muscle cells to take in glucose via the action of insulin. This leads to insulin resistance and the eventual diagnosis of type 2 diabetes once someone has been pre-diabetic for long enough. Type 2 diabetes can be reversed by losing weight and eating starch and fruit. Diabetes is a fat and metabolic disease. Healthy people care about their body and therefore care what goes into their body. The food we eat is the most important factor that determines if you're going to be healthy or not. Healthy people do not take drugs. Healthy people do not have surgery. Healthy people eat a vegan diet based on delicious starches and fruits. If you are wanting to get healthy, then eating cheap foods or having cheat meals or having days off or having cheat days, you are not going to help yourself. You are effectively in a situation where you take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back in the wrong direction. I am here to tell you bad things about your bad habits, but you will thank me in the long run. When you're healthy, your body becomes more resilient to disease. The problem with mitochondrial health is that damage to your metabolism is cumulative. This means that as someone eats an unhealthy diet and lifestyle, this means that as someone eats an unhealthy diet and lives an unhealthy lifestyle, you will damage the mitochondria and you will start to lose mitochondria. This is why it is so important to make the greatest change. With the greatest change to your diet and lifestyle, you receive the greatest reward. When you eat high-fat foods, you are not helping yourself. If anything, you are going to dig yourself deeper into an unhealthy hole. At best, you are going to stall the benefits of your naturally low-fat diet from the starches and fruit you would otherwise be eating. How do we maximize mitochondrial health, energy levels, and our overall health? We eat a vegan, low-fat diet based on starch and fruit. We do not use any oil in our cooking, not one drop. We do not eat any animal products. This means no meat, eggs, dairy products, milk, and fish. We do not eat anything that had a face or a mother. The great thing about eating fruits is they are high in potassium and low in sodium. This is great because the body requires large amounts of potassium for the running of the sodium potassium pumps. When you don't eat starches and fruit with these high K factors, you are running the risk of decreasing the ability of the cells to function efficiently by decreasing ATP production. Running. Now, this is another part of the question that was related to saying that they ran. Not a good idea. Running is not the way to get healthy and lose weight. When you have lived an unhealthy lifestyle and you are overweight, your body is not capable of dealing with the strain of running. You will get injured and you will not be able to sustainably use exercise as part of an enjoyable and fun, healthy lifestyle. I do not call exercise exercise. Instead, I call it having fun while moving my body. And this is the way that you should see it. This is fun, not exercise, but fun. When you enjoy doing something, the more likely you are going to do it again and again and continue to do it into the future. The answer, okay, is not running. It is therefore cycling. Cycling is a low impact sport on the joints that doesn't put the same force through your joints that running does. If you are overweight, you put a strain on your joints with the addition of the increased force on the joints from running, and you will most likely injure yourself or be in pain. If you don't have a bicycle or can't get outside because of the weather, then use the static bike at the gym or use a home trainer in your garage or a spare room. Do not use the treadmills. The bicycle is the freedom machine. It will help you to free yourself from excess body fat. The more you incorporate the bicycle into your lifestyle, the more healthy your life will become, as well as planetary health from reducing the use of cars. You should never move your body with the sole reason of weight loss. Life is here to be enjoyed, and therefore always move your body to have fun. Get a bike, ride it for fun, and you will lose more weight than you ever would if you only rode it for the sole purpose of burning body fat. Exercise, moving your body should be fun. Exercise is essential to keep you healthy, as well as food. When you're moving your body through exercise, you maintain good mitochondrial function. When you go for a bike ride, you don't just activate the mitochondria in your muscles, you activate them in your brain. Studies have shown that exercise increases production of new mitochondria in the brain. Mitochondrial function is improved because exercise and movement go hand in hand. The reason you have a brain is so you can walk down the path in a forest or a jungle or across the prairie and survive. Why do animals have brains and plants don't? This is because an animal moves. As soon as you move, you have to make a value judgment. I shall go towards the fruit tree over there to get more sugar. I shall avoid those wolves over there because I want to avoid trouble. Most of your brain is dedicated to seeing things, movement, and then making value judgments on what to do with this information. This is why I always say life is movement. This is part of the meaning of life. Your mitochondria are the reason why you are alive, so you want to have healthy mitochondria. You don't need lots of money, you need lots of mitochondria to be happy. It's not about money, it's about mitochondria and ATP. The more ATP you have, the richer you are, not money. Another benefit of removing animal products from your life is to stop leaky gut. When we eat foods that contain fiber, they provide good gut bacteria with the building blocks to make healthy fatty acids to maintain the tight junctions in the gut cell lining. The consumption of animal protein, causes the permeability of the gut lining to increase, increasing the likelihood of animal protein getting through the gut lining. Along with foreign animal protein, increased permeability allows bad gut bacteria to release toxins into the blood that cause inflammation throughout the body. Leaky gut is the process that has been linked to the incidence of autoimmune diseases in the Western world, such as arthritis, as well as type 1 diabetes. As foreign animal protein leaks across into the blood, the immune system will produce antibodies to these foreign proteins. The problem that arises here is called molecular mimicry. As animal proteins are similar to human proteins, the antibodies that are produced by the immune system, as well as attacking the original foreign animal protein, can also attack protein in the body that is similar enough to be mistaken as foreign. Autoimmune disease is the body attacking itself. The disaster of these animal products is that they drive the incredible machine of the human body to destroy itself. In the case of fibromyalgia, I recommend also removing gluten products from your diet, such as wheat, barley, and rye. As your health returns by eating a diet of starches and fruit and removing all of your animal protein, animal products, as you get more healthy, you can then try adding bread back into your diet. This does not mean adding butter back into your diet along with bread. If you ever revert back to eating foods high in fat and also animal products, your health will fail. These symptoms that I've talked about in this presentation are part of the chronic disease epidemic and now pandemic in those places that are adopting the Western diet. The modern healthcare system has now given up trying to cure chronic disease, and instead it treats the symptoms of all the aches and pains through a vast array of pharmaceutical drugs. The key to curing all of these diseases is going to the root cause. The rich Western foods, high in fat and animal protein, is poisoning people. It is food poison, just like any other food poison, such as salmonella. The way to treat the symptoms is to stop the food poisoning. Modern medicine is palliative because it simply relieves the pain caused by the destruction of the human body as a result of the rich Western diet and lifestyle. In 1986, when statins were invented, the leading cause of death was heart disease. Nearly 40 years later, the leading cause of death by far is still heart disease. Thank you for watching and thank you for your time. If you got any comments or questions, you can leave them in the comment section. There's also the email. And this video is talking about fibromyalgia. The key point is to take away is chronic disease. Chronic disease is systematic destruction of the body, and fibromyalgia is just another symptom of the destructive diet and lifestyle of the Western world. So the foods, obviously there's other things I haven't talked about. So there's obviously, yes, stress is important to a point. It motivates us to do things, to be productive, constructive, but too much stress can be destructive. But the main reason that people are unwell is the diet. Most importantly, the food, fix the food. Then there's the other thing, yes, exercise maybe is probably the next most important thing. They can both be controlled very easily. And then stress, yes, that's another important point. And yes, there are other things like chemicals in the air, the water. So you can get a water purifier. I'd recommend at least a carbon filter on your tap, or drink carbon filtered water to remove chemicals. But really, reverse osmosis water is probably what you want to go for, but that's more expensive. But I've done another video on that. But anyway, yeah, like and subscribe. I've got other videos talking about how to lose weight, what food specifically you can eat. I've talked about all of these topics, and you have to realize it's all interlinked. If you want to make your world better by the foods and cycling, so a low fat vegan cycling lifestyle, you then see other positive benefits, not just to your own health. So the world gets better, animals aren't suffering. So the three pillars are making the world a better place. So food and cycling, vegan cyclist, that's what you want to call yourself. Your health gets better, the environment gets better, and animals don't suffer. And these are the three easiest things that we can all do very easily. And yeah, if you want to continue to behaving in a way that causes damage to you, the environment, and causes animal suffering, then yes, it's very easy to cause yourself to suffer, animals to suffer, and the environment to suffer. And it's also as easy, in fact, it's easier to make your health better, the environment better, the world better, and to stop animal suffering. So isn't that great? Isn't that great? Yep. To eat a low-fat vegan diet and cycle is a incredible force, a power to make the world a better place, a force for good. There you go. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.